Infinite Spark of Being podcast. My name is Keith Welsh. In this episode, we're going to be talking about self-compassion and why that's important. Before we get into that, go to theinfinitesparkofbeing.com, new art prints, apparel store, books. Drop me a line, if you would, and let me know what you think about me taking the first and second book and combining all of that into one big book with the third book. I had that idea today because there's things in both of those books that I was like, man, that's kind of good. But I feel like it gets lost in there. Like the greatest hits of those two things, those two releases, and then all of the third book, which I'm so happy about. I really, really love it. I'm really happy. I feel like what I'm trying to do is I'm just trying to put all of my shit in one thing. Like, this is it. I don't know if I'll ever do another one or not, but I'm feeling like this. I'm just going to make this the be all end all. Like, this is it. Right? So, compassion. So if you take up the path of karma yoga, which I don't know if I don't feel like I consciously decided to make that my route up the mountain, but I just looked up one day and I was like, oh my God, that's what I'm doing. You know, I mean, I think you take up all of the paths, like, you know, whether it's meditation, and it's not exclusive, but my criteria for my life, not my purpose, but my life criteria is that it has to be helpful and of service before anything else. And that goes to my personal relationships, my professional relationships, all that stuff, right? If it's not going to be helpful, then I'm probably not going to get into it. I think because for a long time, my relationships were so superficial, my job was so superficial. And I know people in that marketing world that they're trying to do things consciously, but at the end of the day, it's just all capitalism. I guess somebody's got to do it, right? I get it, but it's just not for me. Anyway, so compassion is interesting. Until there is self-compassion, and I'm gonna try not to use any Sanskrit terms for those of you that are concerned with cultural appropriation. I would not want to trigger you and have you hyperventilate while you're listening to this because you heard a cisgendered straight white man use a word like Maitri. I'm being a wise ass right now. But self-compassion, so compassion of any sort, it has to start with you. It's like, I don't understand your anger. I didn't understand your anger, you as the general public, until I understood my own. If I don't know me, I don't know you. If I haven't dove down into the deepest parts of myself, I don't know you. And when it comes to compassion, it's the same thing. And I know it feels like you're being very compassionate to somebody, even though you hate yourself and you're not compassionate towards yourself. But come on, the trauma work that I do with people, I've sat with, I don't know how many people that were sexually abused, either as an adult or a child. And so many of them say things to me like, well, I should have done better. I should have known this. I should have done that. I could have done something else. I let it happen. All this horrific shit. Horrible shit. And my favorite is when they have a child that's the same age as them. And I go, okay, I want you to close your eyes and I want you to imagine this happened to your kid. Do you look at them and then say, you should have done something about that? That nobody does. They're all like, Jesus Christ. No, I'm like, okay. So why do you get to take this beating? Why don't you get to have the compassion for yourself as a child that you would have for someone else that is going through the same thing as a child? What is that? You know, I don't know why people do that. I have no idea. I've tried to understand it. When I ask, people give me some bullshit answer, but at the end of the day, it's a habit of the mind that produces that kind of a crazy thought. So that's kind of what some of the, and I hate using the term because all these fucking goofy therapists use this fucking term, but the inner child stuff, right? Where I'll take somebody back to their childhood, have them stand in the room with themselves as a child and talk to themselves as a child before or after or during some horrific event. And they get a lot of, it's not that simple obviously, but they get a lot of clarity out of that, right? And because in Buddhism, the idea is that like until you have self-compassion, until you are easier on yourself, compassion towards yourself, then everything else is what they call idiot compassion. It's idiotic. It's rooted in something selfish, and it doesn't mean that you shouldn't be compassionate. I'm just saying, like, start to look at it like, where's that coming from? You know, and I see it in my job all the time, not with clients, but with fucking therapists. One in particular, where it's like their compassion is idiotic. It's misplaced. It's a misunderstood. It's this kind of thing where they are so compassionate for this one person that they take a shit on everybody else. And when you start hearing them speak, it's like, oh, you hate yourself. That's the problem here. You don't like you, and that's a real fucking issue. You know, public service announcement. Do not ride those electric stand-up scooters with a person with you. Like, what the fuck was that? You trying to hurt yourself? Self-compassion. But yeah, you have to start to, like, I can remember myself, like, just, and it wasn't that I wasn't compassionate to, it was. That's the worst part about these episodes, right? Is that I'm figuring things out as I'm talking to you instead of like I used to do where I had prepared things. I was going to say the reality is I didn't think about myself. I never considered what I went through or the body that I once inhabited, because this isn't the same body. It's not the same one. I don't have the same mind I had as a child. This clearly is not the same body. None of the cells are even there. So the experiences of my consciousness that are retained in my subtle body, I never acknowledged them, right? And until I started to look at how like so much of my karmic curriculum was wrapped up in the programming that was this old response to that. Yeah, so. And a lot of it was when I would think of the way my mind worked, right? Is if I thought of those things happening to me, in my mind, it was always happening to me as an adult. And I didn't care. I was like, whatever. For some reason, it just my body didn't respond to it, right? It was a thought, wasn't a fan of it, didn't like it, but my body didn't do anything, right? Well, when I would think about the little boy, I should have turned here, the little boy that it happened to, and I would imagine him, I felt like sick and sad and weird and all that. And that was very telling, right? And I needed to remember something, right? So let me go back over this real quick. When I think about the little boy that it happened to me, finger quotes, I would feel incredibly sad. Like, that was sad. So who is that happening to? That's happening to the boy. And then I had to remember that little boy, that consciousness is part of this one. This consciousness is constantly evolving. I am a finger on the hand on the body of God itself. So my little sliver of consciousness, my mind, the things that are making up this Keith character, that child still is in there. Those events happened, and that consciousness is there, and that little boy from kindergarten to 7th grade, every year, those children all have a seat at the table, and they all chime in. It doesn't mean that I'm having a trauma response all the time, because I've done a lot of work to heal that, but to acknowledge it and understand that it's still with you, and to have some compassion for you in this moment with all of your stuff. That's what it is, right? And then that gets into personality. So I know I've mentioned this before. I should just stop saying that and just repeat myself. So Leela meaning this thing, this life. Krishna's Leela, right? God's Leela, which in Leela means play, drama, or sport. So to imply that this is some sort of a play, a drama. Then you have the word samskara, which is the deep psychological personality stuff, right? And that's where your karmas come from. Your curriculum, rather, comes out of that samskara. So, but samskara is interesting because it means to dance as the actor. That the personality is this character. The actor, which would be soul, Atman, whatever, is playing this role as Keith. And Keith, it's like when an actor says, what is the motivation? And they're like, oh, well, this happened to him and this happened to him, and they're driven by this, they're driven by that. This is the same thing. That's all my stuff. And I have to acknowledge that those, think of it this way. Here's a better one. I am in the 46th season of this drama. By the time this goes up, I'll probably be 47. 47th season of this drama. Those previous seasons, those old episodes, they're all part of the story arc. I'm sorry, I'm on a bumpy road, and people are making strange choices with their car doors. So all of those previous episodes lead into, especially you think of like a drama, right? I don't know why St. Elsewhere came to mind. It's not like there haven't been dramas on television. Like Yellowstone. There you go. Yellowstone. The first season plays into the later seasons. I don't know what season it's on. But that's what it is. So the 6th season of this Keith drama, this Keith show, has everything to do with this 46th, 47th season. I'm going to pull over so this motorcycle goes past me with his hazard lights on. Those of you with loud pipes in your car and your motorcycle, don't worry. We all see you. You're very special. We're all very proud of you. So the 46th, 47th season of my drama very much involves the stuff that happened to me as a kid. And I have to understand that. And the reason I like self-compassion instead of self-love is because, well, for one thing, for my taste, self-love just sounds like some goofy, hippy-dippy nonsense that sounds like this weird, that new agey spiritual bypass bullshit that so many of you engage in. Love is, here's the thing. If I'm not really appreciative of myself at a certain stage in my life, I can have compassion for somebody I don't even like. I can have compassion for people I don't care for. I do it all the time at work. That's fucking 90% of my job. Because some of these people are, they didn't do great things. They weren't nice people. Now they're trying to be, but I have to be compassionate. I have to appreciate the effort. Same thing with yourself. I have to be compassionate towards Keith the role of Keith, the storyline, the character, all of it. You know, we've all watched movies where, you know, there's some sort of redemption for the heel. You know, and I've definitely been the heel, and I know that is a shock to so many of you. But I've been the heel in other people's dramas. I've been the bad guy. And now I'm just not. I'm absolutely the good guy in everybody's story. I wear a white cowboy hat 90% of the time. Like, I just wear these kind of hats when I do the podcast. So yeah, that's compassion. And until there is compassion for yourself, then everything that you give others is kind of hollow. It's not real. And it doesn't feel like that. I understand that. But once you really start to get into your own shit and start to heal yourself and really, really be compassionate with yourself, hold space for yourself when your mind and your body are throwing an absolute temper tantrum, then you level up. You just find it. You know, some of that trauma work I do with people, like, bad things happened to them. And sometimes I have to do sessions with people that bad things happened to them, and as a result, they did really bad things to other people. And I have to find compassion for them. And I don't think that I would be able to do that if I didn't truly understand my own story, truly appreciate my own story, and have compassion for my own story. And the fad right now is to use the term shadow self or your shadow side. And I think that sometimes that is used as a spiritual bypass for shitty behavior, and you're just indulging in your shadow self when you're actually just being an unskillful pain in the ass. But the shadow is important. You know, grace is important. It goes back to one of my favorite references for that is the Ramayana or the Mahabharata, where all of these heels, so to speak, these bad guys, right, had to do the things that they do or that they did so that the whole story could unfold the way it did, and so that all of these great things could happen. And it's like the Ramayana is an allegory for your entire human experience. Like everything that you experience as a human, and all of those characters are you. Ram is you, Sita is you, Ravana is you, Lakshmana is you. They're all you. Indrajit is you. There's so many. This is probably like a deep cut and nerdy thing, but you know, Indrajit, I just really identified with him. You know, like he's somebody in the book. He's a Rakshasa. He's a demon, but he engages in spiritual practice and is very devoted to his practices. And his dad, Ravana, keeps asking him to do really unskillful things. You know, God, the Ramayana is the Gita, all of it. I mean, I don't know why people aren't more interested in that. You know what's interesting? If you want to understand the Ramayana without having to buy 100 different versions with 100 different commentaries, Robert Svoboda, yeah, because it's S-V-O-B, some crazy ass name, Svoboda. He lived with the Agora sadhus in India in the 60s or 70s or something. Very interesting guy. Follow him on Instagram. He has a great podcast called Living with Reality, and there's an episode where he breaks down the allegory of the Ramayana and Hanuman and all of that. Also, there is in the Ramdas podcast, he does a telling of the Ramayana in like two parts. Like he, you know, obviously glosses over some stuff, but they get into kind of what it all means. More so Robert Svoboda. And that episode of his is very, very short. And I'm not saying that to be an asshole. I'm saying, like, I know that this stuff requires like time and, you know, and you can find audiobook versions of these things. There's a great one of the Ramayana that Ram Dass actually does the narration. It's great. There's a Mahabharata on Audible that Krishna Dharma does this gentleman does the narration, and it is drier than a fucking rice cake. But if you're just trying to get it in, it's there. But once you start to learn the allegory of those books, the allegory of all of it, you really start to when you stop if you stop anthropomorphizing God and start to understand what Shiva and Brahma and Vishnu are, then it really opens up a whole new level. And you learn that you are all of these characters. Like when you read the Bhagavad Gita and you first read it just as a story, then read it as you are Arjuna, then read it as you are Krishna, and then read it as you are both. That you're all the characters, and that's fascinating. And you start to realize that you're all of them. And then when you understand that when Krishna is talking about himself, he's talking about you, it's very interesting. But anyway, so self-compassion, understanding your past, and accepting, the unskillfulness that you may have indulged in, and that it's all grist for the mill, as Ram Dass would say, and that, this season you're in right now this story arc involves all that stuff, so you have to be kind to it. I'm going to stop there. What time? Okay, we got 20 minutes. All right, I'll stop there. So theinfinitesparkofbeing.com. There's a new t-shirt shop, new art prints are up, books. Patreon is there if you want to participate in that. We're not really doing anything. I'd love to do something. I'd love that. It'd be fun. Like a group. I don't know, maybe we'll run a group. Venmo is there if you want to send a kindness donation, and when you guys do that, I can't believe you do it, but it really helps me out. I'm struggling just like everybody else, I shouldn't say that. I'm not struggling. We all get freaked out, we all get freaked out by money. Anyway, I love you guys, and you're all so much fun to talk to, and even those of you that say crazy shit to me, I love you too, even if you don't love me. All right, that's it. You reminded me once, and now I'm reminding you. So, all right, I love you. Bye.